Radio. We are live on Kardec Radio and Kardec Radio Facebook page. This is Sunday night, July 7th, 2019, and we are here with you every Sunday night. Please tell your friends at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between, and around the world. We are going to talk about something very important, and it's just all about the whole sequence that I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 weeks about reincarnation, and it's the power of thought. You do not know how important the subject I am talking about, because thought is action in the spirit world. Here we think, and then we talk, or we move our hands, we do something, but in the spirit world, thought is action. That's why it is so important. First, why are we here? We are here because of this gentleman, Allan Kardec, who codified the Spirit's book. He didn't talk just to one spirit. This was all promised to us in the New Testament by Jesus. I will send you a consoler, the Spirit of Truth. The Spirit of Truth organized the spirits. Allan Kardec codified using different mediums, asking the same questions. He compared the answers to make sure it wasn't just one medium, one spirit, and he codified the Spirit's book with a lot of information, 1,019 questions. It all started here in the 1850s. You can click on his picture on my website at nwspiritism.com. In fact, I'll put it right here at nwspiritism.com. And you click on his picture, you go to the EDICI bookstore. You can find his books on that bookstore. You can find his books on PDF or Amazon.com or your local bookstore. I'm sure you can order them. So again, go to nwspiritism.com, click on his picture, some on the top right-hand corner. And then on that whole right-hand navigation page, you can find all my books. So tonight, we're gonna keep going through a lot of information down from the Spirit's book, books by Chico Xavier and others, to get us more information on how, what the process is for reincarnation. I go through what the process is. I talk about previous lives of people, give you examples. This is why it's so important. So let's get into the subject matter, which is the power of thought. It's very exciting. So, according to Spiritism, thought has power, right? It has consequences. How is that possible? In the book, In the Domain of Mediumship, Life in the Spirit World, inspired by the Spirit Andre Louis, psychographed by Francisco Chico Xavier, there are some explanations. First, as we attempt to modify our behavior to improve our status, our spiritual status, we must first learn to change our habits at the base, which is our thoughts. For we think first before any action while we're in the physical body. And if we are able to create new habits, our battle here on earth, our reason d'entrée to be on earth, is to improve ourselves. That battle is halfway won if we can really change the way our character, our personality, our behavior, the wiring in our brain. That affects the wiring that goes through the perispirit. It affects the wiring as it comes back. When we come back to the spirit world, it affects our personality, and we think clearer and nicer, and we ascend spiritually. Therefore, everyone, we need to understand within our heart that our thoughts do have power. Now, I understand ever since we were children, we've been fascinated by the power of thought. Who, as a child, hasn't been worried that their thought caused or could have triggered a bad action, whether it was in moments of anger against your parents, your dog, or another object of scorn? As we grew up, we learned to dismiss this idea. Only primitive peoples still believe in the evil eye and other forms of spells. Although for many of us, we still retain a belief in power of positive thinking, right? This belief was more rooted in fashioning ourselves to achieve, as opposed to guiding external events according to our desires. We also, of course, hope for some of the latter, but most of us didn't count on it. So accepting Spiritism radically changes this paradigm. We are told we do radiate our mental energies. In fact, we should be careful in what we think because our thoughts do indeed have consequences. Now, am I saying, hello, soul? How are you? Now, am I saying that we're as powerful in the spirit world? No, we're just like a dim bulb, right? But thought does go around. Thoughts are mental telegrams. Now, how do we know this? Well, we have to be careful of our thoughts. They leave our minds and they can draw an unwanted guest. Andre Louise gives an example of this in his book, Workers of the Life Eternal, where during a funeral, a group of people are talking about the deceased. One man started to reveal that he knew that the deceased knew of a man who committed murder, but never revealed the name due to the high position of the murderer. Andre Louise describes what happens next. So he was there at the funeral in spirit form. He was watching what was happening. And of course, these people in physical form were talking. So this is how Andre Louise described the situation. At that moment, a horrendous figure, followed by others, no less monstrous, appeared unexpectedly. The figure approached the thoughtless commentator, and upon hearing his last words, shook him, crying out, "I am the murderer. What do you want from me? Why have you called me? Are you a judge?" The narrator was unable to see what I could, but his body was shaken by an involuntary shudder, which drew muffled laughter from all those present. Oh, good. I'm glad you are a great soul. So, examples such as this one are a constant theme in literature inspired by Andre Louise. Our thoughts are radio waves, indiscriminately radiated in all directions. You never know what person or spirit will tune in at what time. Additionally, do we completely understand the effect of our thoughts? When we think badly of someone, are we increasing that person's chance of failure? Training our minds to regulate often chaotic thought ramblings, which I know I have all the time, must be one of the primary reasons we are obligated to live through numerous reincarnations. So, how do our thoughts transmit? And this is why I have this book. I mean, so what I'm trying to do is lay out all the processes, lay out the way things work, lay out, the basic rules, the basic tenets, so everyone can make their own decision on how you want to fashion your life and work, right? Do you want to work for material goods, or would you like to balance spiritually? Does part of your mind say, yeah, Alan Kardec could be right. Brian could be telling me something. These other people on Kardec Radio may be telling me something that could be true. At the least, I will improve myself, right? So that's all I'm hoping to do. So, in the book, in the Domains of Mediumship, Andre Louise is investigating different types of mediumship. In one case, where a medium, whose name was Raoul, ability is amplified by the presence of a spirit. The spirit's name was Clementino. Andre could detect a great increase in power in the medium's body. Andre's mentor catches his thoughts and supplies the answer to Andre. This is great about Andre. He goes through all these places and he goes, "Oh, how does this work?" And they tell him. It's all meant for us to understand and process. This is what they said was happening with a spirit who was kind of connected to a physical medium. This is what he said. So Clementino was with the spirit. Brother Clementino mental forces acted upon the psyche of Raoul, the medium, as electricity acts upon the electric bulb. Pressing upon the solar plexus, it rises towards a newer cerebral system, much like electricity from a power plant reaches a bulb, expanding through incandescent filaments to produce light. What is he telling us? He's telling us our minds are a mini generator. Our capacity can be amplified. In fact, if you ever noticed when you see pictures of Chico Xavier and he's doing medium like this, and a lot of times you see other mediums, and the mediums will go like this with their hands or one hand on their head. And what they are told is this figure helps amplify the power when the spirit's talking to you. So if you're ever interested in talking to spirits, is get your hand on your head somewhere, either both hands or one hand. And what they say is that increases. That's why you see pictures of Chico like this, and he's writing with one hand and his hand on his head. I don't know how that works, but that's what I have read. So this phenomena, this external focusing, people capacity, being together, has been detected by a group started at Princeton University. A team of researchers have placed random number generators around the world with the assumption that the number would always be random. They wanted to detect if events which caught the attention of the world are in just some local places where the random number generators are located, could be modified by our collective mental energies. And the effort was called the Global Consciousness Project. And this method to detect the power of mental energies is to compare the expected results of a wide spectrum of random number generators, which should have a relatively smooth pattern of random numbers spread across the world, right, to the actual results during an event. And there are many such events described in their web pages. But the most startling is the September 11th terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Here's their commentary for the graph. And I have that graph in my book, The Case for Reincarnation. The graph of data from the formal prediction for September 11th shows a fluctuating deviation through the moments of the five major events, during which ever-increasing numbers of people around the world are hearing the news and watching in stunned disbelief. Times of the major events are marked by boxes. So there we go on. There's fluctuation. Then at about 11 o'clock, right, Eastern time, the cumulative deviation takes on a strong trend that continues through the aftermath period. So there are 37 eggs, what they call eggs, each of these little random number pods, reporting all around the world. And over the 4 hours and 10 minutes of the prediction period, their cumulative chi-square with 15,332 on 15,000 degrees of freedom. So what they found is the final probability for the formal hypothesis test was 0.028, which is equivalent to an odds ratio of 35 to 1 chance that these random numbers would align. And it shows on the graph, what their expected randomness is. And then all of a sudden, it went right through, way past the expected as far as the random numbers. So as you can see how that happened, I have no explanation, right? It's just, these mental powers cause things. As you can see, when you look at the graph in my book, The Case for Reincarnation, the effect of our collective mental energies grew. Now, does this provide absolute proof? No. But it is an interesting assessment by a group that has no connection to Spiritism, a study that provides a hint that academia is interested in measuring our mental energy. And these types of research are just beginning. And who knows what else will be discovered in the future. Hello, Rosalind. How are you? So let's go back to Andre Louis. So he is interested in our thoughts and the light bulb. He wishes to know how the energy of the light bulb is related to our mental forces. His instructor quickly perceived his thoughts and explained the relationship. This is what he said. The bulb, in whose interior light is produced, disperses the photons, which are elements of nature that vibrate in physical movements particular to them, right? The light vibrates within the photons and it shines out from the bulb. Our soul, in whose intimate ambient the radiating idea is processed, projects the condensed spiritual elements into various mental forces. The world acts upon one another, the other thought the radiation they emit, the other through the radiation emit, and the souls influence one another via the mental agents they produce. So, what is he saying? Our mind does send out energy, not photons, but another form of which our science has not yet explained. The normal functioning of our body supplies the power derived from our food intake to allow our brains the electrical and chemical power for our neurons to trigger internally form and emanate our thoughts. Andre takes this logic and extrapolates it to its logical conclusion. Just as we on Earth have an understanding of the chemistry of dense matter by cataloging its atomic units, we can also study the makeup of the mind. Cruel thoughts, rebellion, sadness, love, comprehension, hope, and happiness have individual weights and make the soul more dense or subtle. In addition, we can define it magnetic qualities. Each mental wavelength possesses its specific coefficients of energy expressed in silent concentration, speech, or written word. Now, if this statement is true, that by analyzing the wavelengths radiating from our minds, we are able to ascertain the general thoughts of a person, this explains how spirits are able to mentally read our minds. More worryingly, at some time in the future, a machine to read minds would be possible. Hence, our thoughts in real manifestation in power, right? They have result in power. Now, do they have power like they do in the spirit world where they actually build things? No, but you can tell, like, you've been in a room where like everyone's depressed or whatever, you've been with friends and you get depressed. Now, is it just their body language and their voices? Could be, right? But I think it's also that mental energy coming around, and it acts as a loop, because then they get depressed, then you get depressed, and then you just hype each other, right? And then that's why, your mother always said to get out of your mood, go do something. Well, she's right. You got to get your mind out of that loop and go do something else. And then you've also known the opposite. When someone's happy, you become infused with happiness too. And I don't think it's just visual clues. So what they're saying is our thoughts result in real manifestations of power. Now, as I said before, I'm not saying I can move objects with my mind, right? Our power is limited. But the more you learn to control your thoughts and the more you think you have power, the more you'll be ready in the spirit world where you really will have power. So Andre Louis sums up the importance of our minds. This is what he says. We are victims or beneficiaries of our own thoughts according to the mental energies we project. Thus, we enslave ourselves by our own erroneous thoughts or liberate ourselves towards progress, according to our decisions and activities in harmony or disharmony with the eternal laws. Now, this is very important. This is why I wrote my book, How to Live, and I will talk about how to ascend later today. But it's all about setting yourself up to get harmony and having your thoughts correct. And once you get your thoughts correct, and I don't mean brainwash or anything like that. I just mean understand how the spirit world works. Understand when you're in trials, tribulations, it's for your good. You're being educated. You're not being punished. Understand the things around you, the people around you. Don't hate them. The people that may have done you something wrong, all they are is a player. They were a player picked to educate you. As if, if let's say someone comes up and bumps you in the grocery alley, and this is a very trivial example. You have to think of that person like, oh, I hate that person. He bumped me in the, in the grocery alley, the grocery aisle, and you have to think of that as that person bumped you for a reason, and that person was just randomly picked, right, for some other intersection by the spirit world to show you that, yeah, you shouldn't have bumped someone else in the past, right? This is a very simple example. So that person is just an actor in the play. And you are another actor in the play, being, having dialogue with that other actor for a purpose. It's part of the scene. It will build up to something else. Everything you do will build up to something else. That's how you should look at yourself. And then remember, as we modify our thoughts, we modify our perispirit, either elevating or falling in the quality of our contemplations, which, following the law of affinity, whereby like attracts like, we are determining the level in which we will exist in the spirit realm. Reason enough to begin the long road to exercise our mental discipline. It's part of that, controlling our thoughts. We need to know the difference between anger and indignation. Now, in the spirit realm, it is taught to control emotions, for emotions cause action. And of course, that's why we're here, is to gain wisdom, right? Not just to be intelligent. People are intelligent, but not very smart. You know what I mean, right? Wisdom is intelligence plus love, loving and controlling your emotions for the benefit of others, using your smarts for the benefit of others. So one of the things we need to do is control our anger. And when we succumb to anger, the effects are not beneficial to anyone. But there are methods to use your thoughts and mental force to cause actions for the benefit of all. Now, in the books authored by Andre Luis, psychographed by Chico Xavier, there are always nuggets of spiritual and practical information dispersed about. In the book, Between Heaven and Earth, Andre Luis is listening to an intimate classroom discussion given by Clara on the subject of the voice. She tells her students about the importance of the voice. Now, these are students in the spirit world. They're learning these things. So when they go back in a new life, they learn how to modify their behavior. This is what she told the class. According to what we are learning this evening, speech, whatever it may be, invariably entails specific electrical energies, liberating rays of a dynamic nature. As we all know, the mind is the incessant generator of power through the positive, negative wires of the sentiment and the thought, thereby producing speech, which is an electromagnetic discharge regulated by voice. That is why in all of our areas of activity, the voice modulates speech. This requires the purification of the inner life because speech, after the mental impulse, lies at the base of creation. Thanks to speech, people approach and adjust themselves to the work they are responsible for, and by means of the voice, such work may be aided or retarded in space and time. What she's telling us is the idea of the power of thought and our need to regulate that influence is a recurring theme in the spirit world and to an extent in the material world. We are our thoughts, but more importantly, our feelings affect the world around us. Our thoughts cause actions through the electrical vibrations generated by our mind. That power must be tightly measured. The need for controlling our emotions is backed by a question from a student. The student then asked her, well, when we want to deal with a problem, is it crucial that we never become angry? And this is a really good point. And this is something to think about, when Jesus says the meek may inherit the earth. This answers the question because Jesus didn't say the passive will inherit the earth, which is a lot of the time we associate with meek. What he meant, and according, you can read about this in the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is a great book. I recommend it to everybody. Is meek, what he meant is the educated, the person who's civilized, who knows how to handle themselves, who knows how to handle problem people in a responsible, nice way, not in a condescending manner. So when that student asked her the question, she goes, okay. She goes, let me provide the answer. She goes, yes, it is. It is a proven fact that anger never does any good. So she's saying, you want something, something's happening to you, you want something done, don't use anger. But she doesn't just say, no, don't use it. Now, she's going to supply how you should do it. But first, she's going to say what anger is. Anger is nothing more than a dangerous short circuit in our mental energies due to a defect in our emotive world, resulting in destructive waves being emitted all around us. So that's words to live by, and I wish I had known these a lot sooner. How many, including me, fall in the trap of anger? I know I've lost control too many times to count. The quest for improving our inner emotional balance to create the required spiritual calmness to regulate our emotions is vital for us. And that's why, I've written these books. And of course, my book, How to Live, I think would really help a lot of people. So, and what is the danger in being angry? So Clara provides the details. On such occasions, if we aren't with someone who possesses the insulating material of prayer or patience, the sudden imbalance in our energies causes great harm. Because when thoughts of anger become interiorized, they cause temporary mental blindness, dragging the mind into sensation rooted in the remote past. Sensations that in turn drag us down into unfortunate experiences of lower animality without even realizing it. According to what we know, anger cannot and must be not expressed in what we say. An angry person is an out-of-control dynamo, and coming into contact with him or her may cause the strangest disturbances. So, hence, not only do we emanate corrupt vibrations, but we inadvertently reinforce emotions from a more primitive past that we should have striven to remove from our repertoire. I've also read where someone is stressed and angry. What that does is causes an imbalance, and it interrupts the flow. Your paraspirit really controls more of your body than one knows. And of course, it gets information from the crown center, from your mental energy, and it inhibits this. And this is how people get sick, right? The heart, the more angry, right, you lose that. Your chakras, or force centers, as they call them in Spiritism, become unbalanced, and that's why you have a tendency to be sicker and maybe get some bad diseases. Studies have proven that people who are more spiritual, religious, whatever you want to call it, are healthier than people who are not. It's not because probably God is protecting them, maybe too. It is mostly because they are calmer. They have this inner peace because they understand they're part of a larger project. They're not just part of themselves, or they don't live in this island and that when they die, everything's gone, right? They understand there's more to everything. And that's what Spiritism brings us. So now, as we understand, right, there must be times when we need to express ourselves in a stern manner, right? How else in certain situations can we communicate the importance or urgency of a point we are attempting to deliver? And the dilemma was solved by that student's question. And then so Clara says, what if we replace the term anger with indignation? And then she says, we cannot finish our lesson without analyzing indignation as the state of the soul that is sometimes necessary. Of course, we must avoid excesses. Getting upset all the time about petty things demeans the gift of life, wasting them inconsequentially without the least advantage for oneself or others. Let's imagine indignation as the raising of the tension in the power plant of our organic resources. Create special effects that enable us to carry out our tasks efficiently. In exceptional cases, when such a power difference impacts our daily life, we mustn't forget to control the inflection in our voice, just as managing electrical energy requires monitoring the voltage. We need to monitor our indignation, especially when we have to express it by means of speech, projecting our voice only with enough power that can be used by those to whom we direct the charge of our sentiments. It is crucial for us to modulate the expression of what we are saying, just like the emission of electricity is modulated. So, with indignation, we are using the power of our thought to amplify our force to accomplish two goals. The first is to able to focus our willpower. Yes, no, you will move that car, right? I need you to move that car now. You will move that car. Right? As an example. The second is to direct the force of our thoughts and speech to the person we are trying to spur into action. When you have the voice of command, they react. So Clara concludes her lessons with a message on the need to always control ourselves. This is what she says. Our life may be compared to a lengthy learning course in whose innumerable classes we receive and give. Help are helped. In every circumstance, serenity is always the best advisor, but in a few aspects of our struggle, indignation is needed for us to express our being repulsed by deliberate acts of rebellion against the laws of the Lord. During this elevated mental tension, however, we must never give way to violence, and we must never lose our dignity, as we receive from the divine trust the gift of higher knowledge. Thus, it is enough for us to abstain from acts that we inwardly disapprove of, because our attitude is a magnetic induction current. All around us, whoever is attuned to us usually does what he or she sees us do. Consequently, what we do is a center of attraction. Thus, we need to be very careful about what we say during moments of high tension in our emotional world, so that our voices do not come out in wild cries or cruel remarks that are no more than hurtful shocks to others, sowing thorns of antipathy and revolt that are harmful to what we are supposed to be doing. Therefore, what she is saying is we are all radio towers emitting thoughts, emotions all around us. What we send out over the airways can be used for good or for chaos. We all have a level of personal responsibility, not only to ourselves, but to the world at large around us, to expand our ability to control our emotions and channel them for positive purposes. That's why I was talking to one person. He was saying, "Oh, these people at the store were making me so mad." And I said, and then he goes, "Then I went and I played video games, and then these people would turn on me and kill me." And I said, "Well, you should use that video game as an exercise in controlling your anger." He goes, "Every time they kill you, just say, 'Oh, thank you for killing me,' right? It's don't let that primitive anger go there, right? It's just say thank you. Get yourself into that habit. This is, if you can get yourself in the habit of purifying your thoughts and thinking good thoughts, you can make amazing. Let me get some water here. Amazing advances in your spiritual journey. So let me give you an example. So talk about the past life. We're talking about reincarnation. So let me go back and give you an example of a past life and how it affected their life in the spirit world. This is a story of Alfred and Ismailia. And the story of Alfred and Ismailia isn't exactly about their past lives. Oh, Tommy Lou, hello from Tampa. Oh, thank you, Tommy. It's about their life in the spirit world after their incarnated lives. This is a very interesting story. This story illustrates that true love survives many trials and separations, that if a couple are bonded together, no one need, neither life nor death, keeps them apart for long. In the book, and this is, again, all about controlling your mind and the things it does to us that we don't want. In the book, The Messenger is inspired, of course, again, by the spirit Andre Louise by Chico Xavier. There is a spirit, Alfred, who tells how when he was incarnated, he was a successful businessman. He threw himself in the business dealings and was quite wealthy, right? His negotiations and the running of the business was complex, which kept him away from his wife, Ismailia, and his children. And he goes on to tell the crux of his story. He goes, Ismailia was a stronghold of my neglected family. Virtue, however, can always be tormented by vice. I let my wife be sexually harassed by a disloyal friend, someone with whom I shared extensive business interests. Ismailia suffered in silence for years until he finally realized he was getting nowhere with his immoral propositions. So Alfred's business partner then started to persuade him, Alfred, that women in general weren't trustworthy. Slowly, Alfred's deceitful friend begins zeroing in on Ismailia. A constant drone of the possibilities of Ismailia's unfaithfulness started to wear Alfred down. Alfred would watch the smallest detail in everything Ismailia did, analyzing her behavior and action for clues. He imagined the slightest deed she performed to be proof of her guilt. Now, Ismailia, knowing Alfred's friendship for his business partner, never revealed the story of the unwanted sexual advances to Alfred. She suffered in silence. Now, as usual in these cases, when there's a big breakdown in communication, Alfred became a tyrant around the house, and he would accuse her of being unfaithful. She would only respond in silence. So then Alfred tells him of his partner's next deeds. Finally, not pleased with his results, my business associate hired a stranger to invade our home and remained hiding in the room next door to our bedroom. I noticed something out of the ordinary, burst into the bedroom like a madman. Ismailia, who had been lying in bed, begged me to calm down while I tore the room apart, looking for her supposed lover. Suddenly, I saw the shadow of the stranger who fled from the room next door, out of the window, and into the garden. Without my having been able to get a hold of him, I ran behind him with a gun, shooting in different directions, but did not hit him. Thank heavens, right? So Alfred, fully realizing his pent-up anger for many months, thought of killing Ismailia, but something stopped him from pulling the trigger. He did the next cruelest action. He arranged to take complete custody of the children, which they could do back then, and sent Ismailia back to her parents' farm. She was not allowed to see the children again. Alfred went alone to Europe to recover from his discovery. He arranged for the children to be taken care of by a governess. He made no attempt to find out the truth or get in touch with Ismailia. After 2 years in Europe, Alfred was in France when he received a letter that after her complete abandonment, she fell ill and died of tuberculosis. So how tragic are actions when we do not possess the capacity to love unconditionally? Spiritism tells us that we all have at one time or another played the victim and the betrayer. None of us are undeserving of sympathy. So As an example, let me go on from that story as an example of that, of true understanding. In the book, In the Domains of Mediumship, inspired again by Andre Louis, psychographed by Chico Xavier, there is a scene where a woman, Anasia, has asked for help from the spirit world. She's worried that her husband has found another woman. So during her sleep, when she's out of her body, a team of spirits, right, leads her to where her husband has met his girlfriend. And then she's there and she looks at this whole scene, and her husband's drinking and he's displaying affection for another woman. She's furious, right? She was sleeping. She went into the spirit world, and she's just absolutely furious. Just, oh, he's cheating. He's drinking. He's kissing her. All sorts of stuff. And she leaves the bar, right? And then the spirit leader who took her there goes, look, okay. And this is what he told her. He said, dear sister, take hold of yourself. You prayed so that you could receive spiritual assistance, and we have answered your call. Cheer up. Don't lose hope. Now, this is, again, you never know the effect of prayer, right? Be careful. Because hope, replied the poor woman, goes, I am the object of treason. And then she goes, and all it says, well, treason by whom? He goes, well, my husband. He failed in his marriage promise. He goes, then he tells her this. He goes, do you believe that marriage is a simple excursion on earth? Dear friend, the home is a school where souls reunite to achieve individual regeneration, knowing that perfection is ours in the future. In educational establishments, there are professors and students. Don't you know that the best one should be helping those marching behind? Then she goes, well, of course, I don't think she was buying this. He goes, no buts. He goes, are you forgetting that now is when your husband requires your understanding and affection? A woman should not always view her companion as the man she loves tenderly, but as a spiritual son who needs to be guided with understanding and sacrifice. Equally, a husband should not always contemplate his wife as the flower of his dreams, but rather as a daughter of his heart who asks for tolerance and kindness so that she can be taken from darkness to light. He goes, look, love is not just rosy happiness and the sweet response to sex. It is a light that shines in the height, inspiring the renunciation and unconditional pardon of those we love. But your husband is like a plant that God conveyed into your hands, and you must be a gardener. The plant will be attacked by parasites or deadly worms. However, there is no reason to fear if the gardener is attentive and vigilant. Now, in our culture now, I'm sure there's people who would do that, right? But it just shows, it's really to love someone. Now, I'm sure there are marriages where you have to get out and it just doesn't work. But it's just, everything is work. And then you're helping people improve. And that's why the books by Andre Louis constantly deliver the unexpected lesson, right? That's why I love these books. The Spiritist doctrine applied to the ultimate level, not just unconditional love, but a constructive love, a love where each one of us has the responsibility and the possibility to guide not just strangers, but our closest relations. People have the capacity to hurt us deeply, right? Isn't that what makes people mad when, someone they love says something mean to them? That's when you just have to watch that anger, right? You may be indignant a little bit, but just know that they're saying that because something's affecting them. Now let's get back to Alfred and Ismalia. So Alfred found out that his wife had died of tuberculosis. He didn't let her see his children. He was just cruel to her. So he spent many years concentrating on his business and his children. And he tried to repress the past and forget all that happened until one day, it's always until one day. This is what he said. Years went by until one day I was summoned to the home of my old business associate who was on his deathbed. Then and there he confessed what he had done, how he had harassed Ismalia and tricked me. He begged for my forgiveness, but I couldn't give it. I was devastated. That confession hit me hard. From that day on, my life was that of a madman. I tried somehow to amend the effects of my wrongdoing by explaining the facts of Ismalia's parents. And after some time, I also returned to the spirit world laden with guilt in very poor spiritual condition. So what happened to Alfred after he died and he passed over? He spent time wandering around aimlessly in the lower zone. His conscience would not let him rise at all, right? The lower zone, of course, as I've said before, that's the place from the surface of the earth up to the level of heaven. And of course, as Chico always said, lower zone begins right here. That's why spirits who are errant spirits, good spirits could be here with us too, but that's because they've chosen to be here for, on at purpose. A lot of spirits roam the earth. Some of them don't even know they have passed over. So, of course, the lower zone is a place between the celestial cities where spirits ascend who are free of their material passions and understand the love of God, and the depths where those who have criminal tendencies gather for only as long, of course, as each one of them desires. So I just want to make sure everybody knows, many are in the lower zone. Those who are not cruel, but so preoccupied by their leftover earthly worries or never consider the possibility of an afterlife, they are unable to look up and see the plan for perfection before their eyes. So, Alfred was finally rescued from the sojourn in the world in the middle of heaven and hell. This is what he said. Needless to say, and amazingly, I soon saw myself protected by Ismalia. Unfortunately for me, there is a wide void between Ismalia and myself. She follows my steps closely, but is a dweller of higher planes, which I still work hard to enter into. So for a long time, I've been dedicating my efforts to assisting the unenlightened and the sufferers to come to this outpost. Ismalia comes once a month to help me out and encourage my efforts. And this is so interesting to learn about heaven, because in the books by Chico Xavier, when they talk about heaven and everything, they usually talk about the lower levels of heaven. But in the books by the Reverend G. Val Owen, and this is the first book in a series of 3 books, it tells you much more about the other levels of heaven. And in this book, essentially what the higher spirits have told Reverend G. Val, and there's about 10 now. They use a numbering system. And they say this numbering system is arbitrary. Other people use other descriptions. But for purposes of what we're saying now, there's like 10 levels of heaven. And probably no Solars either on level 1 or close to there before. So how did Ismalia get higher, right? Because the law of affinity placed her with like goes with like, with her spiritual purity, right? She never complained. She died, poor woman. So, and then in each level of heaven, people go through and they educate themselves, and they eventually, graduate to the next level if they want, right? You're never told you have to work or you have to go another level, right? You have to go to school. No, you can stay at a level, you can park as long as you want. But she had evidently been using her time productively and been up in multiple levels of heaven. Now, so what he has to do then is he has to study. He has to change his thoughts. He has to purify himself. He has to get rid of those primitive emotions, jealousy, anger, whatever. And then he also has to learn about the process and procedures, how the spirit world works, right? How you think and how you cause actions to be taken. There's this marvelous scene, and when I talk about it in my book, Heaven and Below, where Reverend G. Val Owen's mother, who was the spirit, talking to him, saying how she and a group of people said, okay, we're going to teach you how to use the universal fluid, and to create with your mind. And they said, now you group of people create an elephant on that pedestal, and they made a statue of an elephant, and part of it looked real, part of it didn't. And they were just kind of laughing and so forth, because they're all learning how to use their mind. So in Ismalia, only went to see him once a month, because first of all, she was probably around him the whole time when he was in the lower zone, but he could not see her because she was less dense. The higher you go, the less dense, which is the saying that you are more energy and less matter, right? Spirits in the lower zone are more matter, less energy, and those in the dark abyss, or like a purgatory or hell-like place, are even denser. Of course, they're all less dense than we are here on our physical life on Earth. So I hope that explains that for people. So, so she comes down and helps, right? And of course, and again, I want to say that this is, in fact, I just had a comment by a lady today saying, I'm worried that, what happens if I die and our families are on different levels? And, that's a really good, So what families do, and another example, I even say this in my book, Heaven Below, also, as well as in the case for Reincarnation, is families help each other. Families will help each other. And there was this one case of just two children. They're at a superior level, and their parents were quite a few levels below them. And the children weren't really learning because they're trying to help the parents too much. And the high spirit visited them and said, look, you're doing the job for your parents. You're going down to them. They need to want to come up to you, and you have to stop doing their work, right? It's like a kid, you're doing their homework for them, and what are they learning? Nothing. Of course, at this time it was reversed. It says, look, we'll give you a job, you can go down and visit them and so forth, but you've got to help them know that they must improve themselves to ascend to you. And this is why Ismalia is coming down and helping them. So Andre asks Alfred, why couldn't Ismalia come down and help Alfred permanently, right? So Alfred tells Andre that he and Ismalia's superior guides, this is typical, you hear this, and recommend that Alfred's first rightly learn to appreciate what God has given him and not to thrust it aside so easily. So Alfred tells Andre, I am the one who must learn how to elevate myself, which I've seen in other examples by other mediums and other spirits. This is what's great about Spiritism literature. You see the common themes, right? I am the one who must learn how to elevate myself. And it's for this reason that we haven't had permission to remain together yet. I am paying the right price for my hastiness. Because of my impulsiveness, I lost my inner peace, my home, and my wonderful wife. I did not kill, I did not steal, but I feel as if I poisoned myself. Slander is an invisible monster which spreads poison through undiscerning ears and eyes. So, Alfred, I'm sure, will achieve his goal with the help of his true love, Ismalia. By his hard work and dedication, he shall advance in his spiritual quest and be united once again with Ismalia. He is not rushing his rehabilitation. He is calmly building a solid foundation to be a proper partner for his wife. And that is something, I would say most probably they'll be, wife and husband again in a future life. And, it's a wonderful story. So I think one of the main things to take away from this is what the process of reincarnation is, the power of our mind, and then use our own power, our willpower, our force, is to get ourselves ready to rewire the way our brain works. And my book, and I have a lot of YouTube videos on different areas of how to live on my YouTube channel. Also have on my BitChute channel too. Please subscribe. This video that I'm doing on Kardec Radio and Kardec Radio Facebook page, I will load this up to my YouTube channel. You can get to my YouTube channel through my nwspiritism.com. You can click on that. Please subscribe, hit the bell. Please share this video to others on Facebook. I believe that we are bringing people the knowledge about the spirit universe, the knowledge about why you're here, and the knowledge of how to improve yourself. And my book, How to Live Inner Peace with Spiritism, Andre Larice wrote a really, 24 verses, very short verses, 5 or 6 words at most, maybe 3 or 4. And this is the kind of the order of how to improve what you should do. And what I did is I took each one of those. I said, okay, what does this mean? What does the spirit world actually mean by this, right? And then how do you achieve it? And it's all like it's like a foundation. You go one after another to help you get yourself ready to ascend, because that's really why we are here, is to get ourselves ready to ascend. And we need to do this in concert with the earth itself is now getting ready to be a planet of regeneration. Now, how long that takes, I don't know. My thinking is very long time, but we are at the beginning, and we will probably go through multiple lives as we are going to that. Betsy, you have your book on audio? That is a very good question. Betty may just show that to people. I have just finished my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, on audio, and I've just put it into ACX. And my next book I'm going to do is How to Live. That what I'll be working on next is that will be on audio. And then after that will be my series of 3 books, Heaven and Below. So hopefully that should be out a couple months maybe, as far as How to Live. That's the next one I'm working at. But the first one I just finished, is the 7 Tenets of Spiritism. The 7 Tenets of Spiritism is my own personal journey of how I found Spiritism, how I saw the signs and signals of Spiritism. So if you want to be notified, go to my nwspiritism.com and join that. You can say you can be notified. It's up on the top right hand part. And when that book is out, you will be notified. I do 1 blog a day. I don't spam you with email at all. Hopefully not. If you do, just tell me not. And I do 1 new blog a day, like I do on Spiritism, the spirit world around us. And I will put that on there, that I have my audiobook ready. So I just want to make sure that was a great question. So yes, I have other people told me that they want audiobooks, and I finally got the courage to do it. And so it's been great. It's a lot of work, but I'm hoping hopefully to reach more people. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for asking. That will be out soon. So, and then if you want to hear me, I've got everything on BitChute and YouTube too. I mean, I've got lots of videos, and I just actually did one about This Isn't Heaven, and that was on the, around Rio de Janeiro. So hopefully that might be amusing to people. I do a lot of little videos, 4 to 5 minutes. Do we have a guardian angel guiding us? Yes, everyone has a guardian angel. And in fact, a child when they're born to 7, they have a guardian angel constantly with them. Now, as you get older, they don't need to be constantly there. You're not as, vulnerable, and they can look ahead and see what's happening to you. And they'll be there in times of trouble, maybe right near you, but they're always mentally connected. So yes, you always have a guardian angel. And in fact, I talk about this in How Spirits Guide Us in the 3rd book of the series, starting with Heaven and Below. And in fact, you have a guardian angel even in the spirit world. One of the spirits talked about he met his guardian angel for the first time when he was in the spirit world. He actually met them. So yes, you are always have a mentor. I remember I went to this one talk. This one lady was giving a talk about her NDE. And she called her guardian angel Frank, because he was always so frank right with her. And he said he had a marvelous sense of humor. She was stubborn and hard to get along with. And he would tell her, well, I don't think so. And, he just had that, kind of humor like that. So yes, she got to meet her guardian angel, and it was a marvelous experience for her. And some people, like the spirit who has been pretty high spirit, actually, according, relative to me or most of us, he was excited to meet him and said that that guy's been with him even through thick and thin in the spirit world and in his incarnations on Earth. So I hope that answered your question, Tommy. So if that's it, there's no other questions, I will let everyone go. I want to say God bless everyone. Thank you for listening, and thank you for these questions. I love questions. Don't ever be afraid to get me off topic. And also, please join on my Facebook site, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. You can find that link to that from my blog again, nwspiritism.com. I'll put that up here on nwspiritism.com. There'll be a link to Spiritism and Spirit World Around Us. On Wednesdays at the same time, I give another talk. Oh, you're welcome, Tommy. On Wednesdays, I give the same talk. And then lastly, I just want to say, if you want to talk to me more and really go through Spiritism, I would recommend you go to spiritismstudy.org. Yes, Soul says, think of this one. Thank God we are never alone. People should never forget to pray for the guardian angel. That's great advice. And then ask for advice all the time. They love giving you advice. The more you open up on that advice, the better. But anyway, anyone who wants to talk to me, go to spiritismstudy.org. And I've had quite a few people already do this. Then you go click down a little bit lower, and then you can say you can set up your own Spiritism study appointment with me and other people. And then I will arrange to talk to you with via Skype or WhatsApp. I know a lot of people use WhatsApp around the world and Skype. And we can arrange an appointment. And I'm not going to force you to say you're going to study this, right? No, we'll just talk, see what interests you, see where you want to go. So I would be happy to lead anyone who wants in talking about and exploring your questions. I've had people say, well, I don't know if I believe this. And I said, well, that's fine, right? You need to build your own rational foundation for what you believe in, right? So I just want to make sure that, so if anyone ever wants to talk or discuss things, I am always here. So thank you, Tommy. I'm just a novice like everyone else here. So anyway, I want to say God bless everybody and good night. Thank you very much.